Hey, what's going on, Game Weepers? This is Iggs. In today's video, 15 most broken champions for 1223. I mean, you probably read the title. I don't know why I say that stuff. But yeah, before we get into the countdown, guys, like always, these countdowns, like, I can tell you, like, who the best champions are going to be, of course. But at the end of the day, the difference between, like, maybe a low elo player and high elo player is, for the most part, going to be how you're playing the game, not the actual champion you're playing. So to actually perfect the role you're playing these champions in, which is by far the most important, like, kind of thing, I guess, to climbing, check out the Game Leap website, link down below in the description, comment section. Our challenger players and coaches from around the world upload daily videos for our subscribers, so get exclusive access to that library of content by signing up. And yeah, let's get into the countdown. Now, it's not really like a countdown, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go through the roles and the champions who are super broken in these roles. So first of all, let's start on the top lane. Now, the first champion who's been broken ever since Riot changed the game in 12.10 with the durability tanky meta, this is Darius. Nothing is changing next patch for him, to be honest, because Ravenous Hydra is getting nerfed, lots of champions, and we might get into a couple in the near future. Well, because of the Hydra nerf, they're getting indirectly nerfed, right? Which is great for Darius, because you're not going Hydra. Whether you're going Trinity Force when you're really fed and the enemy team is very squishy and melee, if you're going Stridebreaker, because the enemy team has a bit of kite, so you need the stickiness to stick to them. Honestly, this champion is just super broken still, innately speaking, so it doesn't even really matter if those around him are getting nerfed. The champion is just so strong still. So if you're not playing Darius in the top lane, if he's not in your champion pool, then it is really time to do so. Now, speaking of one of those Ravenous Hydra abusers, who is going to feel a little bit of the nerf next patch because there's going to be no Omnivamp, and also the damage from the cleave passive, this is getting reduced by 5% for melee champions and ranged champions as well. So for Fiora, you might feel this a little bit. But the great thing for Fiora is that she's so innately strong, just like Darius. I mean, all these champions are innately strong, don't get me wrong. But speaking of Fiora, whether you're going Grassly Undying for those kind of like trading matchups in the top lane, which makes you pretty much unbeatable in terms of trading, because the heal at the end of it, the fact you can proc this off your lunge as well, it's just too busted. Or whether you're going Conqueror, because stacking this, and once you do get to full stacks of Conqueror with the Ravenous Hydra and Divine Sundra setup, for example, it's incredibly powerful. And I'm sure if we've played top lane, Fiora is just one of those champions you hate seeing locked in on the enemy team, so she is the second top laner. Now, the third top laner, this is a champion who, well, I mean, you could probably get away with building Hydra on him, but for Jax, what you really want to be doing is going Sundra, and then maybe even Spear of Shojin is your second major item. Of course, you don't have to, though. You can go Frozen Heart, Death's Dance, something like this. But Jax, just like Darius and Fiora, innately strong, right? Because this champion with lethal tempo, the stacking with your passive, it's so OP, and champions have to be very careful trading against you because of your amazing gap closing potential, right, with your Leap Strike. Obviously, just make sure you're maxing your W first. This combined with the Sheen proc from your Divine Sundra, you will deal so much damage, and because there are lots of tanky champions in the game, Jax being a Divine Sundra user, the Spellblade passive is so useful to shred through that HP. So Jax is the third champion in this video. Now, the fourth champion, this is actually one of those tanks and would do pretty well into Jax, this being Shen. So if you see an auto attack based champion in the top lane, Shen is unreal because of his W, of course. But another reason why Shen is going to be even better in 1223 is that Sunfire Aegis is getting buffed. So not only are you getting more HP in the item, but it's going to be cheaper as well. This is awesome news, because if you're going Heartsteel into Sunfire Aegis, well, this build is just better, right? It's cheaper, you'll get to your second major item spike quicker, so for Shen, it's great. Also for Shen at the moment, his win rates, I mean, he's classified as an S+ tier champion in pretty much every single elo. He's easy to play, very good for junglers because your setup is so good because of your taunt, and of course your ultimate, your Stand United, it can protect teammates, and with Heartsteel, it's even more broken because the HP you get from this item. And Heartsteel, just speaking of this, because as Shen, you're going to be in close combat with enemy champions, and it should be easy to proc, to be honest. You're actually a pretty oppressive, offensive, attacking champion with this build. Even though you have a lot of tankiness, you deal very good damage as well. So Shen is the fourth top laner, but not the last one. This is Camille. So a bit like Fiora, Ravenous Hydra is going to affect you Camille players out there. But one of the best things about Camille is that you shred champions with HP, which is really what is kind of like defining the meta at the moment. If you have good DPS, if you can shred through HP, you're going to be loving life. Camille just happens to be another one of these champions. Just like I mentioned, the Ravenous Hydra nerf. I mean, this patch should be bad for Camille, but the nerf really isn't big enough. The Carnivorous stacking is staying the same. It's really just the damage you're losing a little bit from the cleave passive, and of course the Omnivamp, but you're still getting 10%, so you should be sweet. So Darius, Fiora, Jax, Shen, Camille, those are the 5 top laners in this video. Now, moving down to the mid lane, we only have 2 mid laners here. The first one is, well, actually a champion getting nerfed in 1223, so how on earth can she still be broken? Well, this is Syndra. Now, I understand that there are 3 nerfs here, right? We might be like, oh my goodness, 3 nerfs, a champion have just become so bad because of them. Well, let's think about Bel'Veth. She got like 4 nerfs in one patch, still broken. Let's think about Janna. She got like 4 nerfs in one patch, still has like a 53-54% win rate. Gonna be the same for Syndra, to be honest. It might drop maybe 1%, you know, if you're lucky. But honestly, guys, these nerfs are to your W's damage, to your E's damage, so the AP ratio, Echo, and then your E's cooldown, it's really not going to change that much because your W, it's not like the most important ability in your kit. They're not nerfing your Q, which is one of the big keys to Syndra's strength. Also your E, the actual cone radius, right? So the radius, the area of effect from your scatter of the weak, that's the big positive for this ability. So yes, they can nerf the damage, but it's still going to be impossible to miss, especially when you get to those splinter stacks and it's at 90 degrees. Also the cooldown going up by 2 seconds, you're probably only going to use this once per minion wave in the mid lane during the laning phase. And when you do get to team fights again, you're probably only going to use a couple of these. 2 seconds is not going to change all that much. So Syndra is the best AP mid laner for 1223 as well as now. But the best AD mid laner and maybe even the best champion on the Rift at the moment, who will still be very good in 1223, this is Zed. Now I understand the Zed if you're rushing Ravenous Hydra, it's really the big thing at the moment, right? It's the big trend, but even with the Hydra nerf, it's not really going to change that much. So Zed mains, you should still be happy. I thought Zed was going to get nerfed himself, so to kind of escape 1223 with an indirect nerf, this is just a bit of a bonus, to be honest. Just make sure, guys, if you are playing Zed, that you are maxing your W second. That's right, not your Shadow Slash. Even though Riot buffed this, but think about it, they buffed the actual energy, so it's 40 flat. You don't have to worry about maxing it to get it lower. It's going to be 40 even with 1 point in this. Getting your W maxed out second, the cooldown goes down. This is the big thing here. And for those of you who have played this setup with Zed, it is unreal. It's one of the big reasons why he is classified, just like I mentioned for Shen, as an S+ tier champion in pretty much every single elo. So if you need some attack damage, Zed in the mid lane, one of the strongest picks. Now moving down to the bot lane here, we have 3 AD carries to talk about. Now the first of these is a champion who is getting untouched in 1223, which is great news. This is Caitlyn, who is the strongest AD carry, mainly because she's uncontestable during the laning phase. There are very few, in fact there are no champions who can deal with her strength at the moment. Because of the buffs to Caitlyn not so long ago where they increase your headshot damage via the passive, so your trap damage might be down, but remember, most of your headshots will come from your passive, especially if you're auto attacking from brushes, right? Because these autos count as 2 stacks, so you get to those headshots quicker, so you might be able to abuse this a little bit more. But Caitlyn with lethal tempo, the range, it's too much for every ADC to deal with. So if she's not banned, you should definitely pick her in your champ selects at the moment and continuing into 1223 as well. But maybe one champion who might be able to contest Caitlyn a little bit, this is Lucian. Now first strike Lucian, hopefully as well you have like a Nami next to you who can empower you, especially your burst damage with first strike. You'll be getting so much gold and getting so much damage off. But even if you don't have a Nami next to you, innately speaking, Lucian is a very good AD carry. You have good poke with your Q, you have good mobility so you can pounce on your enemy's mistakes with your E and also escape those situations. And the cooldown based build at the moment for Lucian, where you're going cooldown boots, lucidity boots, this really helps you trigger your passive even more later into a game, right? So that's really going to help your DPS. So Lucian, if you don't want to play Caitlyn, honestly, probably the second best AD carry. Now the third best AD carry, this one is really just statistically speaking, and I'd really be picking her as a counter pick because blind picking Kai'Sa very risky. Caitlyn crushes you, Lucian crushes you. A champion like Xayah does very well. Even if Felios does very well into Kai'Sa. So there are a bunch of champions that can be picked against you and you can't ban all of them. So if the enemy AD carry is playing something really free, right? Like they're not the scariest champion in lane, maybe something like a Jhin, maybe something like an Ezreal. Oh my goodness, pick Kai'Sa. You're going to outscale everyone and get your evolutions, and the enemy nexus will probably explode shortly afterwards. And really Kai'Sa's strength, well, that has come from all the buffs recently to her. So even though they've mostly been like kind of AP, I guess, this still helps your DPS, and that's why she has to be considered here. Now moving into the jungle, guys, these are actually the last 4 champions. So I know like I could mention supports here, so maybe Janna, maybe Nami, like they have the best win rates, maybe even Renata just innately speaking, Zyra is a very good support. There are a bunch of them, but in the jungle, I just think these champions are stronger. So that's why there's no supports here. It's not because I have some sort of like anti-support mindset because I've mentioned them in every other video. It's just that, yeah, these 4 champions, well, let's see if you can contest me here because I think these are more broken than any other support. Now, the first champion is Wukong. Now, I understand Ravenous Hydra getting nerfed affects Wukong a little bit, but this champion, because you still have Divine Sundra and you can get through all the HP in the game, busted. That's the reason why. And with Conqueror, the stacking, too good. So Wukong is the first jungler. Now, the last 3 are AP. Now, 2 of these are really big heavy hitters. The first is Echo. So ever since Riot have buffed Echo recently, right, he's really taken off in terms of the jungle, and because of the changes to the jungle, so in terms of Krugs, spawning all the little Krugs now, because you're an area of effect clearer, you can clear so easily. Well, I guess with your Q at least, you clear these camps so quickly now, right? So it's Echo. because lots of champions or players, I guess, are full clearing because you want to full clear and just scale, and you will outscale pretty much everyone. You can afford to do so now. You're not going to get punished as much. So I guess like the new jungle mentality, jungle meta if you will, has really helped out Echo. And because it's easier to clear Krugs and just get through your camps, he has to be in consideration. And that reasoning is exactly the same for this next champion, Evelynn, who has received some nice buffs recently, and because of the changes to the jungle camps, and almost like the jungler's mentality, I guess, oh, let's just clear camps and, you know, shake hands, which I actually think is wrong for the most part. But anyway, that's how most people are playing the game, right? So Echo, Evelynn, full clearers, they can get to level 4 free of charge and play the game. And once you get to level 6, once you have Sorc shoes and your rocket belt for Evelynn or Echo, you are in such a strong position to then take over a game. And Evelynn in Platinum and above to have over a 53.5% win rate goes to show how good she is. Now the final champion, guys, on this countdown is actually a champion getting buffed in 12.23, because I think the buffs and even nerfs in 12.23, well, some of them are sizable, but not sizable enough. But this one, I think is. These are to Zac. So your Q's cooldown is going down. The damage is going up as well, and you'll also be healing more from your passive, right? So when you drop those blobs, picking them up, you'll restore more of your HP now, which is actually scaling off your max HP. And because of the Sunfire Aegis buff as well, this is really nice for Zac. I think it's going to put him back on the map and actually be OP again. And if there are any Zac mains out there, let me know in the comment section if you think he will be broken just because of these buffs that are coming in. So I know there's a lot of them, but I think they are actually quite significant. And if there are any other thoughts, guys, you might have on this countdown on champions who are getting changed, all the ones we mentioned, of course, let us know down below. And if you do want these preseason videos to continue, leave a like down below. And until our next one, this has been peace.